Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining for Sunday service. It's a real joy to be here all together this morning. My name is Nayaswami Anandi. This is Nayaswami Bharat. And we especially want to welcome all of our guests and visitors and offer a big congratulations to our graduates of our meditation teacher training program, another stellar group going out into the world to share master's techniques of meditation. So the reading this morning is from Rays of the One Light, which are weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Ananda. This week's reading is on reason versus intuition. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness for it. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Jesus, when addressing his critics, appealed to reason and common sense. In his training of the disciples, however, he, like all great masters, encouraged in them the development of a higher faculty, soul intuition. For it is only by intuition that spiritual perceptions are achieved. In chapter 16 of the Gospel of St. Matthew, we find Jesus drawing on the intuition of his disciples by asking them who they thought he was in reality. They immediately understood that what he wanted from them was a subtle answer, not some obvious reply based on his nationality, sex, and the like. Peter it was, at last, who understood and answered the question on its intended level, the spiritual. "Thou art the Christ," he said, "the Son of the living God." And Jesus turned to him, saying, "Blessed art thou, Simon, son of Jonah, for not by human nature was this truth revealed to thee, but by my heavenly Father. And I tell thee this also, thou art Peter, which is to say, a rock. And upon this rock will I build my church, and never will the powers of darkness overwhelm it." Jesus was pleased with his disciple for relating to the question on its deepest level. Reason could not have given Peter that answer. The answer came through the faculty of soul intuition and proved him thereby to be a spiritually advanced disciple. It was his intuitive perception, that insight which cannot be shaken by tempests of reasonable doubt, that Jesus praised in referring to him as a rock. The church he referred to next was the edifice of cosmic consciousness. Any outer church institution would have to depend, as in fact the Christian churches have always done, on the level of understanding of its individual leaders and members. Peter's intuitive perceptions could never have been passed on to an outward succession of prelates. Clarity comes by direct soul perception. Confusion results from excessive dependence on reason as the guide to understanding. As the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita states, when your intellect, at present confused by the diversity of teaching in the scriptures, becomes steadfast in the ecstasy of deep meditation, then you will achieve final union with God. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to Sunday service too. I'd like to read from Whispers from Eternity, a book on mystical poems by Paramahansa Yogananda. And I'd like to read a prayer demand for removing the cork of ignorance. No more shall my consciousness remain bottled in this little vessel of flesh corked with ignorance. No more will I remain moving through the sea of cosmic consciousness, night and day, years, decades, and how many incarnations, so close, yet never able to contact thy sea. Through the bursting vibration of cosmic sound and the surging of thy holy name, I have removed the cork of ignorance, which so long separated me from thee, though we lived together so closely. Now my body consciousness will meet thy all-surrounding, all-pervading consciousness. No longer will I walk heedlessly in thee, but never knowing and feeling thee. Thine image within me shall meet thy image everywhere. By releasing the I-ness in me, I will know that I am thou, and that thou alone art the little egos of us all. Paramahansa Yogananda said that this life is like a mystery novel written by God. And God being beyond the intellect and physical matter, reason alone can't decipher this novel. In fact, Yogananda said people would go crazy trying to read this book if that's all the faculty that they had. And you look at the state of the world today, and you could sort of see that Yogananda is right. The reason is an incredible, important faculty, and it keeps devotion in balance. It grounds us, but it's a limited tool. And people worship on on reason. I once, Anandi and I, we were at a workshop, and there was a woman scientist from Virginia, and she said, "I don't believe in anything I can't see." And I just, in my heart, I felt, oh, but your world is so small. Do you know that Yogananda said that reason and inference and the testimony of the senses has discovered only 1/1,000,000th of the nature of all things? That leaves a lot left, doesn't it? Sri Yukteswar talked about the astral worlds as being hundreds of times bigger than the physical world, and then you have other worlds too. And the physical senses helps us to navigate and function in this world, but it's limited because everything comes from consciousness and is driven by consciousness. And when you can get the consciousness right, then everything else comes along with it. There's so many expressions of that when you're in the consciousness of Om, the cosmic sound, that the world adapts to your needs. When you go into Christ consciousness and you go beyond vibratory creation, nothing can touch you. And you're immune to everything. And so if we want to really understand our lives and creation, of course we have to use our soul perception in order to go deeper. Yogananda talked about the saints. They're the greatest scientists of all because they have gone beyond and discovered new worlds and new laws on all the different planes of existence. And you know what their secret is? He said, if you really want to understand, bring more light to the brain. Now, Swami Kriyananda talks about the secret of creativity is to rechannel the life force up the spine. And Swami also said that intuition is calm feeling, and calm feeling is intuition. Because, actually, Yogananda, he said that, that we know that the heart is the center of feeling, isn't it? And if feeling should be passed all the way up and 2, the intellect, which is here at the spiritual eye, and actually has to go through the spiritual eye because it has to go beyond the intellect. And that keeps feeling in the right perspective. You said devotion without, without calmness, because actually from the heart energy, if the energy goes out, Swami has called that disturbed feeling. And that changes our perspective, doesn't it? Because our feeling follows our reasoning, our reasoning follows our feeling. And wrong kind of feeling biases how we're thinking. And so this is what's, we're a thinking society in the West. I've heard in the East, and it's from my own experience too, is that people are immediately suspicious about world building on a mental level. They just sort of discount it. All of our physical senses, they have another aspect of it, more of a spiritual aspect. And if you take the sense of touch, when you go deep in the cosmic Om, you touch the whole universe. You feel every atom in creation vibrating. And as Yogananda said in Samadhi, he might have gone beyond, I think he was going beyond the world of vibration when he was in Samadhi, but he said everything in the world is happening within me. And you just feel everything. And then the light, when that comes, in the Gita it says that the inner light is brighter than 1,000 suns, and that it's calm and it's just liberating. And as we start to touch these divine realities, of course our whole consciousness changes. And there's when we sense into it, or when we have an intuition, there's a sense of rightness and a sense of knowing and deep understanding. Anandi and I, we have this friend in Taiwan. She's a Sharing Nature coordinator there. And she's a very, very deep soul. She's very joyful, very childlike, always playing or meditating, but very, very centered in herself. And everybody's just really, really attracted to her. She came over here for a program with our other country leaders. And Sahaja was leading the group. And somebody kicked up a yellow jacket nest, and they attacked the members as they were on the trail. And a lot of them had the yellow jackets in their hair. And the yellow jackets, they'll bite to get good purchase, and then they can jab their stinger in. And they can jab it numerous times. And so there was a little bit of a commotion, you could say, in the group. And there were people kind of going like this and dancing around. And Xiao was standing there, and she said to Sahaja, "Bee?" And Sahaja goes, yeah, bee. And then she was helping all the people that were reacting to the bees stinging them and biting them as well. And she was helping Sahaja was helping 3 or 4 other people. And then things calmed down a little bit, and Xiao, she goes, "Bee?" And Sahaja looked at her hair, and she had 3 or 4 yellow jackets just biting just real aggressively just in her head. But she was just calm and centered. And she would call us sometimes from Taiwan. And she didn't know much English at that point. Now she has Google, but translation. But she would call. We just loved her phone calls because the call would go like this. "Joseph and Anandi, Xiao, happy." Happy. And we would save it, and eventually the Ananda phone system would get rid of the message, and then we have to wait for her call again. But she attended a class by Swami Kriyananda with the other leaders, and most of the people spoke English. But she didn't understand English, and she sat absorbed in the class the whole time. And then afterwards, her comment is that I don't understand a word of English, but I understood everything that Swami Kriyananda said. And I believed her just because of the depth of her soul. And this is what intuition does. It just unites us with everything and all of life. And we were truly with it. I think every one of us in this room have had this long, deep desire of just wanting to merge with life and just really be a part of it and not have that sense of distance. And that is what's driven us on the spiritual path. And it's through that calm feeling, intuition, that helps us to really have that sense of interior communion with all of life. There's a member of Ananda years ago. He talked about, he was in Mexico and he was standing on the balcony of a house in a city and enjoying the lights of the city. Then all of a sudden, there was a brownout and the power just failed all across the city. And all of a sudden, he saw above him the stars that he hadn't seen before. And they were just so much more beautiful than the city lights. And that's what happens when we interiorize our energy. And that's what calm feeling is that a whole world is revealed to us. Yogananda said, behind the darkness of closed eyes, there shines the light of God. And it's just there. Just Yogananda said that he saw all of us in light, and that was more real than everything else. In fact, it just was so bright, it just got rid of all the physical forms and everything. Yogananda said, as we go through the spiritual eye, the soul starts to have different intuitions. As it goes, the spiritual eye is a reflection of the inner spine. And it has a golden ring, which represents the astral world. Then it has a field of blue, which represents the causal world. And then it has a white star in the center. And that is the star of spirit. And as the soul starts to retrace itself back to infinity, to the divine consciousness in which it came from, as it enters through the yellow field, that is one starts to see all vibration. It's the world of energy and beyond form. And then as you go through the field of blue, you're free of the ego. The ego has a post. Every ego is a vortex of energy that just pulls everything back to itself. Well, you're free of that. You were free of the physical body in the astral world as you're in deep meditation, but then you're free in the blue of all ego. Sri Yukteswar, he said that great souls, they create universes when they're in the causal world. I think God has to wait until they're ready for that responsibility. But then you go through the white star and you experience cosmic consciousness beyond vibratory creation. And these are just soul lessons that the soul is just coming back to through the inner experience. And so you really can't develop you can't really develop intuition until you go into deep prayer or deep meditation in that absolute stillness, because that's what a calm feeling is. And as you go into that, then that's when the world begins to open up for you. Swami has talked about there are 4 different ways that you can ways to work at developing our soul intuition. And the first one is still the mind by deep meditation. I just read yesterday where the average person has 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. And 95% of them are repeated thoughts that we have every day. I heard somewhere else that not all these thoughts are positive thoughts. And in a book, How to Talk to God by Yogananda, he said that God is always speaking to us, all the time. And, he said that words vibrate, and they have energy. And that's the Om vibration. Sometimes that Om vibration would speak to Master in Bengali or English whenever Yogananda would have a question. But somebody said that they learned energization exercises and Hong Sa, and it was their first week of learning these techniques, and they just started to hear the Om vibration, and they said that they could hear it all the time. I just sometimes have to remind myself to listen. But that is just the most constant divine reality. And it's God's voice, sustaining, holding every aspect of creation. And God is very personal through the Om vibration. And so God, through the Om, but in so many other ways, and subtle hints of intuitive guidance, is speaking to us. And the only way to do that, to really hear His voice, is through that stillness. The mind is likened to a shortwave radio. It has two different modes. We don't use shortwave radios very much. Down at the village office we have one, I think. But it has the two modes. One is broadcast. And this is when you can speak out to the universe. And you can hear yourself and your voice. But you can't hear anything else around you. And then there's a receive mode on the shortwave radio. And this is when you aren't talking, you're listening. And this is when you can pull in messages from the surrounding environment. And so this is why in deep meditation, we'll be able to really commune with God and to hear Him and hear His guidance for our daily lives. Also, it's only in the deepest state of meditation that God can share the deepest truths with us, because we're on a wavelength where we can receive those truths. And then another one is to live consciously in God's blissful presence. There's a beautiful story of Sister Gaudimata. She's the most advanced woman disciple of Yogananda. And there was a photo taken, and everybody actually was there on this front steps of the ashram Mount Washington to greet Yogananda on his return from India. And there were about 100 people there, and they decided he had just arrived back after, was it 3 years in India? Is that how long he was? And we had a hand over there. It was just a year? Oh, okay. It probably felt like 3 years to everybody. But anyway, there were 100 people there, and they decided to take a picture. And in the picture, everybody was staring at the camera, but Sister Gaudimata, she had her back to the camera, and she was just looking at Master. And Master was her pole star. And she just always thought of Master, and so much that he would speak at Sunday service miles away from where she, because of her health, she wasn't able to be out much at all, but she could just hear his words. And she said, "I liked when you said that in your talk today, sir." And Yogananda said, "Oh, you heard that, did you?" She was that in tune. And another thing is to commune with God in inner communion. There's such a beautiful example of Swami Kriyananda when he went to visit Anandamoy Ma, a great woman saint in India that's Yogananda had written about in Autobiography Yogi. Many people were watching the outward aspects of who was getting special attention from Anandamoy Ma, and who did she recognize and all that. And Swami would just sit in the back, and he would just be still, and he would just feel her presence. And Yogananda said that, Anandamoy Ma said that Swami was like the bee that goes just direct to the lotus flower and takes the honey away. And that she said that he's taken more from me than just many that have been here with me for 25 or more years, just because of just being absorbed. And I was thinking of this process. It's really spiritual osmosis. You learned in high school biology, or maybe if you're an advanced student in junior high school biology, about a cell will take in things from the environment, and then it'll give part of itself back to the environment. And when you have the disciple and you have the guru, there has to be that two-way flow, doesn't there? Of the disciple just inwardly drawing the energy from the guru, but also there has to be a self-offering on the disciple's part, of offering one's love to the guru, one's energy. Yogananda said, serve the work, it just will help you to be more in tune, and you aren't just getting things for yourself. If there's not that interchange, what has happened in a cell is that it creates a hard barrier that just can't allow that passage to come into the cell. John Muir said a lot of people are like marbles, separate and not touching life. And there has to be that interchange. In meditation, it's changing us more on our astral level. And do you know that Yogananda said that when we're practicing Kriya Yoga, one of our advanced techniques with Ananda, is that Yogananda comes and merges with his astral body, merging into our astral body to help us to do Kriya. And so this is, Yogananda wants to give us everything. And we just have to be open to that. The last point I wanted to make is to fill your heart with God's love, and to open oneself. Many people, we've all had challenges, maybe sometimes where we haven't measured up to stuff or wish we'd done something different. And sometimes we can think less of ourselves. There's a beautiful story of a YTT student, a yoga teacher training student at Ananda, that was dealing with depression. She always felt like she didn't belong in life, and she just wasn't good enough, and she just had a real poor sense of self-esteem. And she found out about Yogananda, and she came here and was in the chorus, and she walked up to the Crystal Hermitage to buy a photo of one of the masters. And on the way to the Crystal Hermitage, she got lost. And who did she meet along the way but Swami Kriyananda? And so he gave her directions on how she could get to the Crystal Hermitage. And then so she went in and bought the photo. And then as she was coming out, she saw Swami Kriyananda again. And he said to her, "Have you meditated yet in the chapel at the Crystal Hermitage?" And she said no. And then she started to turn back towards the expanding light and walk away after talking with Swami. And Swami said, "I really think you should meditate in the chapel right now." Well, being on the ball, and she followed Swami's suggestion, and she went into the chapel. And as she was praying, she was opening herself up to the masters. And she felt a finger. And she said it was Yogananda's finger, touch her heart. And all of a sudden, all that low self-esteem and that not being good enough, and all these thoughts, she second-guessing about herself, it all just went away. And her depression left, and the need for medication, everything just went away just because it was her karma to have it be all removed at that time. But that is just always there, available for us. God wants to touch our heart. We just have to open our heart and get rid of the hard exterior. And of course, we have all done that in our lives. And we just need to do it more and better, maybe, work towards perfection with it, because we know we're on the right path and we've experienced the benefits of opening our heart to God and feeling God's presence. And the more that we do that, because everything, it depends on attitude, doesn't it? You can sit and you can be still in meditation and you can do the techniques, but if the heart isn't full of love, then we'll take any kind of experience we have in the wrong way. But when there's that kind of pure love, as we grow deeper into that, God can give us more and more, because God knows that we're ready to receive it on the highest level. Okay, bless you all.
Keep calling Him, keep calling Him, whether He replies or not, keep calling Him. In the temple of unceasing prayer, believe that He's approaching there, and call to Him, keep calling Him. Thou dost know I'm praying, Lord, you know I love no other. I'll speak not nor ask when to expect from you an answer. You know my heart. I'll call to Thee again. Keep calling Him, keep calling Him, whether He replies or not, keep calling Him. I'll wash thy feet of silence with the waters of my tears. The altar of my soul will be empty till thou comest. I'll wait for thee, no matter days or years. Keep calling Him, keep calling Him, whether He replies or not, keep calling Him. In the center of my heart I have a mystic throne for Thee. The candles of my joys are dimly burning now in hope, awaiting Thy coming, though it be eternity. Keep calling Him, keep calling Him, whether He replies or not, keep calling Him. Even when there's no reply, never let your longing die, and call to Him, keep calling. Remain persistent, undepressed through dark and seeming silence. If in the midst of life, disease, and death you play the dancer, yet keep calling him, you will receive his answer. Keep calling him, keep calling him, keep calling